Welcome to the Fort Collins Fellows podcast. From Colorado State University to New Belgium Brewery and the hundreds of miles of hiking and biking trails, Fort Collins has earned its well-deserved reputation as one of the top places to live in the United States. Your hosts, Patrick and Chris, were born and raised in Fort Collins. Patrick owns and runs Soukup Real Estate Services, a top-rated real estate brokerage company here in Fort Collins. Chris is the co-owner of the Murphy Whitlock Group, a top-rated residential mortgage broker based out of Fort Collins. Now join the fellas as they uncover the stories, places, and people that make Fort Collins so exceptional.
Well, today we have a very special guest. I was just suggesting that it is the power couple of power couples in Fort Collins, and one half of those is very graciously giving her time to us today with the Fort Collins Fellows. Ginger Graham, thank you for joining us.
Woo! Thank you, Ginger.
Ginger, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about yourself. Here. Yes. If you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about yourself, kind of your background. I know you've been in Fort Collins now for about 12 years, but talk to us a little bit about how you got here and how you've liked Fort Collins for the last over a decade.
Well, it's a fun story. I think it's like many people. I followed a guy here. So, that's how it happens, right? As you follow a guy around. But Jack was a CSU football player and was drafted into the NFL from CSU. And then when he sold his business after his career, was invited back to CSU to be the athletic director. So that's how we got to Fort Collins. And, it's just been fabulous for us. So we love the community. We feel like it's a very philanthropic, engaged, highly diverse community in terms of interest and backgrounds and really their experience of living in Fort Collins. So for us, we've always loved communities that have colleges. And of course, that qualifies. We love communities where there are local business owners and people who are vested in the community. Fort Collins is a standout in that regard. Jack and I are both very outdoorsy, athletic, interested in activity. And so you have the mountains here, you have the river, you have, the bike trails, you have the great outdoors in all aspects. And so we enjoy the scenery, the topography. We have horses, we haul them to the mountains or the plains and we ride. We love to ski, we love to golf, and we have a farm. So we're just outdoors all the time. So those are very important overlapping benefits to us at Fort Collins. But I think the thing that really struck us the most and the reason we've decided this is our forever home is it's a community that really is top to bottom interested in making itself better. And so for us to see how many nonprofits are in place, but they also work together, they don't compete. We see the Community Foundation and its leadership in enabling nonprofits to be even more effective. We see private-public partnership here, the city plus business, individuals plus our city, improving our city, and making commitments to make it a beautiful community, as well as a community that cares about each other. So there's a high level of philanthropy. There's a high level of engagement. People show up to the lights when they come on downtown. People show up at the lagoon for music. People show up at New West Fest and Tour de Fat and you name it, the Corgi Parade. There's an investment by the community in its social fabric. And I hope a continuing openness to understand each other, to engage with each other, to be civil to each other, and to make the community better, even when sometimes the next step might be not as advantageous to you personally. And so that's really what draws us here and keeps us here is that spirit of a friendly, active, engaged, giving community.
That's like a great breakdown of why we're always on those lists. It's like, always a top place to live and see, like, why are you on that list? And I think, Ginger, you articulated that perfectly from what the community has to offer and always wanting to grow. So I love that. I think that's a great explanation of kind of a good summary of our community and our town, really.
Well, and I think it's not just words either, because I think one of the things that you said was engaging the community, even if it doesn't necessarily benefit you to the fullest. And one of an example of that is that LeMay overpass that really cut through your property. That was, your property is just absolutely gorgeous, and now you've got an overpass that's kind of cut through there that might not have been necessarily the best or most desirable for you guys, but has changed the North Fort Collins landscape overnight, so to speak. And now are you running for city government over here? Because you're just talking great about Fort Collins. Is it Ginger Graham for mayor or what?
No, I'm not.
Yeah. Watch out, Jenny.
But I do think it's so important to say it out loud and to talk about it and to hold ourselves to it, because one of the things that I've observed is communities can change toward the negative. They don't always change toward the positive. And so if we don't call ourselves out loud who we want to be, and we don't hold ourselves mutually to that, the overpass is a great example. Jack and I would prefer that they had not taken a bunch of our property and built a freeway on top of our farm, but for North Fort Collins to grow and for the community to be integrated into Old Town, which is great for Old Town. It was required. And so, we're trying to figure out how to put some trees out there and make it not quite so invasive, but it is the city's need for growth. And I think being able to say as a community that we sometimes have outcomes that are disadvantageous to a few on the benefit of the whole is something that we have to do. And the community struggles sometimes, like every American right now, with civil debate. And I just want us to challenge each other to do better. And so in that sense, show up to city council meetings, show up. The DDA hosts all kinds of public meetings. The Community Foundation hosts meetings where people can come learn what's going on, what the challenges are, what the needs are of the community, but asking people to get engaged and to talk our way through it so that we do better, not always perfect, but we do better as a community, and we continue to be that friendly, inviting, engaged, inspiring community where people wish they could live, because that increases the odds that we all have neighbors we like, neighbors who can make a difference, neighbors who give back. And that's what it takes.
Well, I think you guys, the overpass, as somebody who goes and plays golf up at the country club, thank you so much for allowing that to happen. I think it turned out great, by the way. I saw the trees that you've planted on the kind of like you build up the ground right there for a little privacy. Right. So I thought it turned out great. And obviously, as somebody born and raised here, man, that was a bigger issue getting across Vine, and obviously had to be done. But you talk a lot about community, Ginger, and you guys at Ginger and Baker, I'm looking at it right now. You're all about community support and how. And I know kind of reading your history. You're from Arkansas, is that right? Yeah. You came from Arkansas, and
yes.
You grew up on a farm. Like, it's funny. It says Old McDonald Farm, and I have a 13-month-old, so I've been singing that nursery rhyme to my baby for like the last couple of months. But talk a little bit about, you grew up on a farm, and sustainability, and you talk about food education, food security, agriculture education. Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing at Ginger and Baker. And obviously it looks like it's something that you grew up around and it's very important to you, and how you guys are giving back to the community through Ginger and Baker.
It's very personal. It is very personal to me. I was gifted with the opportunity, I believe, to grow up as a child in rural America. So I'm from Arkansas originally. My dad's a Texan. My mom was an Okie, and they moved to Arkansas and raised their family. And, I say out loud now, I think we were poor, but I didn't know it as a child because we always had food. Mm-hmm. And my parents did everything they could for the community. My dad ran the parade and the grand entry at the rodeo. And my mom worked in the kitchen downtown, and they fed people. And when people had hardships, whether it was a death in the family or, good news, a new baby, but the mom is home in bed, my parents fed people. They took people in. They loaned them our clothes, our cars. It was a way of being for them. Mm-hmm. And the community I grew up in Springdale, Arkansas, is so much like Fort Collins. Fort Collins is the first place I've ever lived that I felt like home, because in Springdale, we had billionaires. We had the Tysons, we had the Georges, we had the Walmart family, the Waltons, we had all of these important.
They were all in Arkansas in that area right there. Wow.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
JB Hunt is there. And
yep. I know JB Hunt.
Yes. I went to school with the Hunt boys, and the Tyson kids were a little bit older than me, but they went to the same high school. And so one of the great things about the way I grew up is the richest people and the poorest people went to the same church. They watched the same parade. My dad bought his truck where Sam Walton bought his truck, but it was a community, and the Waltons gave back enormously. The Tysons gave back unbelievably. They invested in the quality of their community, so everyone had a better life in Springdale, Arkansas than they would have without the benefit of the few had really figured out how to become economically, very generous. And so I had a great role model in life that the importance of food, there are still always people who have less than you. My family always fed people. And so I have this enormous bias about growing your own food, about fresh food, about local farmers. I really value agriculture as a part of our community, our economy, and our country, and even security. I mean, food is critical. I'm an ag student from a land-grant university, which is, University of Arkansas, very much like CSU. I went to work in agriculture. My mom always said I would be the first woman Secretary of Agriculture. She had lots of confidence in me from the beginning, which I think, contributed a lot to my own self-confidence. And so agriculture is near and dear to me. I care about it deeply. I believe that we must maintain our agriculture community. And so Ginger and Baker has many nostalgic overlaps for me in that way. My dad would put us kids in the back of a truck back when you could and take us to town, and we'd go to the co-op. And in the co-op, he would sit and talk with other farmers and have a cup of coffee and talk about the weather and the cattle prices and the whatever. And this building, this old feed mill, grain mill that is our building, was exactly that in Fort Collins. It's where farm people brought goods and city people bought them. It's where commerce occurred. It's where agriculture community people supported each other and talked. There are wonderful stories of young men who got jobs, who even lived on that site when they got in trouble, maybe with their families, or they ran away, and they would be taken in there and given a job and help them to grow up as humans. So it represents to me, deep roots in the community, the kind of community we are, which is the interface between academia and agriculture, between a growing economy and the land that feeds us. And for me, that building and the idea of the business are very resonant. Our little tagline for Ginger and Baker is history, community, creativity, and pie. And
don't forget the pie. Pie is very important.
Pie. Yes. Well, and for all of them, there's true meaning. Like history, that's a National Register building, a state historic register building. The community loves that building. The community was worried about what we were going to do to that building because people care about that piece of history, which is a great part, again, of all of Fort Collins. Look at our history. Look at our architecture. Look at our downtown. That matters to people. And then community, to me, is the symbolism. Farm meets city. People do commerce together. Farmers support each other. Community engages around it. You get your dog food there, your cat food there. You adopt your baby rabbit from there, or your baby chick. So it's a place where people came together. And for me, that's the point of the business. It is a community gathering place. I want it to be a place that everyone in Fort Collins is proud of. And they take their friends and family when they come to town because they want to show it off. Look at what's ours. Look at what our community has. And to me, that's what Jack, did with the stadium is look what we have. Look at what's ours. Let's go see the incredible CSU campus and the football stadium and how beautiful the architecture is and the sculptures out front. And at Ginger and Baker, let's go eat at a piece of history. And oh, by the way, their eggs are local, their dairy's local, their mushrooms are local, their greens are local. And, even if you eat the pumpkin soup, I grew the pumpkin here on the farm. If you have our cherry jam, it's off our cherry trees here at the farm. Lots of our herbs in the summertime are from the farm.
It's amazing how many local things come from the area. I'm always blown away by that. You just think, oh, it's cold and it's snowy in the wintertime and it's hot in the summertime. It's amazing the produce that is produced locally in the area.
Yes, and I can tell you, it's not easy. And many people use greenhouses and technology, which is great because it does allow us to be more locally sustainable. We don't at the farm. We're very seasonal. So, for 4 months out of the year, every day I'm hauling truckloads of stuff to Ginger and Baker that help us be local. But it's really, I think, an important value for me personally that I hope Fort Collins will also retain, which is we are committed to our local farming community and we will buy from them, even if it is more expensive, which of course it is. It's hand done. It's a family. It's the way they pay their mortgage. It's lower volume. It's higher quality. It's fresher. And so we as a community have to invest in that if we don't want to lose it. And I hope we will.
Which
I agree.
Brings up a great point. We were chatting about this kind of prior to jumping on recording, but the restaurant industry in Fort Collins is kind of just is interesting, right? There's Jay's Bistro that's been around forever that just shut down at the end of January, and there's these establishments in Fort Collins. I feel it's kind of in this growing pain type area of like, do we have enough density to afford the rents that we're charging for these restaurants to be successful, make a profit, make it worthwhile? How do you see kind of that Fort Collins growth to be able to, support a Ginger and Baker or a Sunny Lubick Steakhouse or something along those lines to where, hey, if we want these businesses here, we need to come in and spend those hard-earned dollars here?
Well, it is a great question. And I'm just reeling a little bit from all of the closures that have been announced in January and early February with long-term institutions. And frankly, a lot of people who've owned family-owned, locally owned businesses in Fort Collins over the last year are selling those businesses. And so I do have my fingers crossed and hoping that other local people are going to step in. But it is more challenging. I can tell you, we at Ginger and Baker are also very challenged. Our food costs are up dramatically. And I'm talking 20, 30, 40%, and some items 400%. And so, we're making choices that we didn't make at the very beginning. Sometimes, like last year, there was a time when celery went from being $12 a box to $60 a box.
Jeez.
And so we just said, okay, this week we don't have celery. We never made that choice before. We would go to King Soopers or Costco or we would find celery, but the commodity prices are so volatile right now that our price structure changes so dramatically, literally truck to truck, not even month to month, that we're making some choices that sometimes we just can't put an ingredient in what we would normally do, or we're taking things off our menus because we cannot imagine how we could charge you enough as a guest to make that something that we could do. And so rather than, do a poor quality of it or try to embarrass ourselves with a price on the menu, we're just taking it off the menu. And so it is concerning to me, a number of restaurants. I would say there's a half a dozen notable restaurants that have declared themselves going out of business in the last 2 months. And I don't want that to be true for our community. I want local business to thrive. And I also believe that the city has a role in that, and the county. Our property taxes at Ginger and Baker went up 67% this year. And that's because I appealed. Their original notice to us was 127% increase in property taxes. And so I appealed it, and I worked very hard on writing a very long rebuttal about why that wasn't doable for the business and not supportable by the local area that Ginger and Baker is in. We don't have good sidewalks. We don't have streetlights. We don't have parking. We don't have the same city support and infrastructure in that part of town. And so I didn't think it was warranted, but it definitely is a huge hit And so labor costs are up over 40% over 2 years. Food costs are up over 30% over 2 years. Our paper supply cost, literally 100 to 200%. Remember COVID, when we had to buy gloves? Gloves went up 400%. So there's a lot of behavior, which I believe is business to business, price manipulation that is maybe unwarranted. But there also is the reality. We all know getting a driver to deliver food is one of the biggest.
We were just talking about that last night with my family. I'm like, we bought a pizza oven so we can make pizza at our house now. We love it. But we joke, we're like, this costs $300 or $400. But if you order in and you pay the driver, you pay the delivery fee or whatever, it's like $80.
Yeah.
It's like, it's amazing. It's crazy.
Yes. Well, think about it. They have to hire people to pick food out of warehouses. Mm-hmm. They have to pack it into trucks. They have to have refrigerated trucks or freezer trucks. They have to drive to your location. They have to pay a person to unload it. Then we have to unbox it all. We have to dispose of all the boxes and containers. We have to put it everywhere it belongs in the building. We have to then prepare it, peel the potatoes, peel the carrots, break the onions down. We have all the waste. We bring all the compost to the farm and we compost out here. Otherwise, we'd have to pay for more trash services. And so it really is a challenge. City utilities are up dramatically. The cost of water, the cost of electricity, the cost of gas. Our cost of oil went up 3 times last year. And, people love fried chicken. So if you're going to fry something, you need oil. It went up 16%, 3 times in a row in 1 year. And it's not optional. What am I going to do? Say we're not going to have oil in the building? I can't say that. So I do think we as a community have to be very aware that if we're going to support our local businesses, and I mean everything, retail, your auto shop, do remember to go shop and not just use Amazon or not just order from chains. We need chains too. But the local businesses feel these individual price variations more because they have no bargaining power. I can't negotiate a better deal with the food supplier. I'm one little restaurant. I'm not, 1,000 restaurants across the U.S. with purchasing power.
I guess the obvious follow-up question is there a solution to this? Or is it just something that, hey, once it goes up, it's not going back down? I'm just curious your thoughts. I mean, you are incredibly successful businesswoman, and you talk about your role at Walgreens and all your back history. Like, Ginger, what are your thoughts? I mean, I sat there hearing you talk. I'm like, this is all the reasons why it's hard to start a business. It's hard to start a restaurant. Yeah. All these things you're talking about, chopping onions and things like that. I'm just going, people should hear this when they think, you know what, I'm going to go start a business. And you're like, I'm not saying don't start a business, but there's a lot of things to think about when it comes to building a successful business. But I guess my general statement is, what are your thoughts going forward? Are these prices going to come back down, or are you just going to have to adjust?
Yes. Well, price reductions are hard to come by.
Right.
I do think it's forcing all businesses to think differently about how they do things. Mm-hmm. And, so I can tell you in the last 2 weeks, 2 times I've had consultants in the business, people who are in the food business that are much bigger than me, that have had many more years of experience than me. And I've got them, bringing their tools. So telling me, what do you do about this? And what do you do about that? And look at what we're doing here. And this is how we order. And this is how we price. And trying to make sure that I'm getting the best available advice for people who've been in the food industry forever. And there's part of it that's rewarding. Like, we had a long meeting last week with some people, and after we spent 2 hours with them, they said, okay, you guys are doing everything that we would advise you to do, which feels good, but it's very dissatisfying because, okay, what the heck? Now what? Like, if I'm doing everything that you would get me to do, and that's not good enough, then now what do I do? And so we actually are doing some more things. We're doing some training, front of house, general management training. We're looking differently at hiring. And I can tell you that the way we manage our menus is different because of food costs, as I described before. We're renegotiating, going out to all kinds of vendors and doing bids again and saying, we need a better price. We can't do this at this price. We're doing line by line in our income statement, We have a lot of phone lines in the building, and it sounds silly, but we decided to cancel a few of our phone lines because it's going to save us some money. We're looking at what we have to pay for music, what we have to pay to have TVs in the business, what we have to pay to clean the building. We are looking at every line item and saying, is there another way? And that's what I think every business owner in town is doing right now, because I can't tell the city to drop utility prices. I can't tell the county to cut my property taxes. I can't tell the oil vendor that I won't pay for oil. I can't tell the trash company, don't pick up my trash. Those options are not available to me. So what I have to do is I have to build the brand. I have to entice more customers. I need to build our business. We need to offer more services. So we're going to be launching our catering side pretty soon. We're trying to show people our gift basket business, because we can do great gift baskets for other businesses for gifts for their clients, or, welcome to Fort Collins things. And so we want to have more ways that we can serve the community, that we can then generate the revenue to help us cover the overhead cost.
Yeah, I love it.
Do you like, and I can't remember the name of the restaurant right now, but College and Mountain just opened up, owners of Little. I can't think of it right now.
Yeah, I was talking with my brother about it.
Their business model is, counter service. So trying to cut down on labor costs. And, so I'm sure those were all conversations that they had, of phone lines and how are they going to save money, TVs, all that kind of stuff. But what they decided was a counter service type restaurant open for breakfast and lunch. And, it's just, trying to be flexible, to pivot and make opportunities work that might not have been as desirable as maybe a full service hostess at the front of the house, sitting you down, having waiters, waitresses, bus boys, bus girls, all that kind of stuff. But
yes, well, the business model matters. And I'm a strategy geek. I love business, all sorts, all sizes. I love thinking about what a business means, like what is the purpose of it and how do we sustain it? And so for Ginger and Baker, I have as long a list of choices of what we're not as I do of what we are, because to me, good strategy is compelling. Everyone wants to be associated with it, but it's also constraining. It prevents you from doing things that are not consistent with who you are, because it's easy to try to chase short-term opportunities. And these are great examples. Like I can say to you, there are many places in town that use handhelds, and your server is typing on a little handheld while you're ordering. At Ginger and Baker, I won't let us do that. We still have a print newspaper that opens up like a newspaper, tells a story about the business, the history of the building, has some humor in it, because I'm really big on making sure that we smile every day while we're there together. And we have a story to tell. If you want to order one of our chicken pot pies, we'll tell you that we roast the chicken bones. We make our own stock. We only use fresh herbs. We hand make the crust. It's like your grandmother made it, but nobody does anymore. And so we are trying to build a brand that is scratch made, locally sourced food. And I can tell you that I could change it, and we could buy all of our vegetables pre-cut. It would save me a ton of labor in the building. But they're not the same when they're all pre-cut and everything's been frozen, and we're just pulling it out of freezers and refrigerators and putting it together. And so we peel our own potatoes, and we do peel our own carrots, and we do make our own stocks, and we do roast bones in the house. We butcher our steaks in the house. We are trying to bring you the freshest, locally sourced, from scratch cooking that is consistent with this idea of community and with hospitality. So I want you to have a server. I want you to have a young person working with you to help tell you all the fun you can have while you're here, give you a tour of the building, invite you to come back for a teaching kitchen class, explain to you how you could do team building with your company, or you could have your board dinner in the wine cellar, that we are part of your community.
That's a good idea. I'm going to have to remember that.
Yes,
wine cellar. Yes. Yeah,
yes.
That's a good one. You know, Ginger, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Finish up.
Like we want to offer something that you cannot get somewhere else. So you want to come with your dog, with your family, with your board meeting, with your date night, with your dinner, with your coffee, your computer. You want to be with us because there's an experience there. And other businesses will do other things because that's their business model. And so for me personally, the challenge is, can I make this business successful with this hands-on business model? And that's the challenge, because it does cost more. And are you willing to engage with me at that level because it's worth it? And that's the dance we're trying to figure out.
You know, there's a show on Netflix. We watch it called Chef's Table. Do you ever see Chef's Table? And it's about restaurants all around the world. And the one theme that I watch I love watching, my wife and I love watching it. But the one theme that's always there is the quality of the food and the quality of the ingredients. Like that, just like if you have that and you deliver a quality product, you know, you have a good chance of succeeding. So I was just thinking about that when you're talking about, you know, we could have the celery come pre-cut, but you're like, no, we're not doing it like that. It's better this way. So, but my question to you next, Ginger, is you're talking about, you know, the people that you bring on and hire. It sounds like they go through quite a training process. Like you're bringing, you know, young individuals in to work at Ginger and Baker, and they got to understand your business model, and they got to understand how to communicate what your mission is to these your customers that are coming into the front door. It definitely sounds like that, you know, you're building them almost like if you're a young adult coming to work for you at Ginger and Baker, you're going to get a lot of life skills coming your way, and you almost educating them, you know, for whatever they want to do down the road. And it seems like a great place to work and learn about what could, you know, potentially be down the road. But no, I love that approach.
Well, I want it to be a great place to work. You know, we're not perfect by a long shot, and we could do so much more training. It's also a challenge when you're open all the time. You know, when do you train? And of course, you have to pay people to show up to train. And so you add to your cost a lot to train. And so we're always trying to balance that process of training that is on the job, or training that is shadowing someone else, or training that is literally in a classroom. And we do all three. Because we need to do all three. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I'm very proud. I could tell you stories of individual young people who've worked with us a year or two in their, you know, march through college or whatever. And I keep in touch with them. So, you know, one of them is moving back from California, and I can't wait to see her, and I'm trying to help her find a job. And, you know, we get these stories back from young people who came, because I say to them, and I feel very strongly about this, that my commitment is not that you're going to stay forever, or that I'm going to employ you forever. But our commitment together is that you'll be better off for having been here. You know, we'll learn something together. We'll have some fun together. You'll get some new skills. I can be a great reference. You be a good employee, so that we're better for having been on this journey. And, you know, it works sometimes. It doesn't work sometimes. There's a lot of turnover in the food industry because it is a business where anyone can walk into any restaurant, and if they've had restaurant experience, they can probably contribute something today. And many restaurants are shorthanded. We're all struggling with repopulating our workforce after COVID. And so people jump jobs quite a bit. We have a lot of strict rules in our business about uniforms, about hygiene, about timeliness, about language. I mean, you know, some people laugh at me, but I want a respectful building. I don't want bad language in the building. I don't want offensive music in the building. I don't want disrespectful behavior. I want us to treat each other really well and to do better by being together. And not everyone wants all the rules and requirements that we have in the business. And, you know, it's okay. But I just think for us, we interview everyone multiple times. We do an orientation for new employees. We try to do a good job of training, and we're doing even better at training. We provide uniforms. We offer benefits. We feed them on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday because it's so busy in the building. We have a holiday party together. We know our employees by name and what their needs are. And we're trying to be a place where people are proud to work, just like they're proud to bring their family to eat.
I'm going to change it up on us real quick, because we have a limited amount of time, and I think this is probably extremely important. And I would love to hear your insights of, there's been a geographic boundary, hard fence at Jefferson on Linden. And there's been a couple businesses like Ginger and Baker, like Union, like the developments that are going along Willow. But how do you see kind of that river district, so to speak, development that's happening with the Mission that's going to be relocated? I'm sure Mawson will get an offer that they can't refuse at some point sooner than later. How do you view kind of north of Jefferson on Linden, and do you see it as like a future potential economic opportunity for Ginger and Baker?
Well, we definitely do. When we did the investigation about the site of the property and the business model from the beginning, we realized we were early. And so, my concept was that we would be the hub at the center of the wheel, and that the river district would grow around us. The Whitewater Park, Woodhouse Spa in Confluence, and the condos there, 281 Willow, definitely Union came in, the Elizabeth opened after we did. So all of these things have happened after we opened Ginger and Baker. And there were plans for the lot across the street from us that currently we lease and use for our guests to park, but is owned by someone else. And obviously at some point that will also be developed. So we saw what we thought was a commitment by the city to expand to the north and the east. And so, Montava is a discussion around that, all the development that's around our farm, the overpass with LeMay, all of the new higher density housing that's going in the northeast part of town, improvements on North College. You've seen the improvements in the landscaping and the street there. And so the city has a view that its last area of growth is north and northeast. And we saw the River District as a very potentially attractive, highly active, outdoors, new business concept area for Fort Collins. And if you actually look at the zoning for the River District, it's ag industrial. It's intended to have bigger alleyways, bigger outdoor spaces. If you look at what's in Old Town, it's more narrow alleys, small spaces. In fact, outdoor spaces weren't that common until COVID, and obviously we have more now. But the River District was seen as that much more open, pedestrian, high volume people at the river, at the breweries, in the businesses in the River District, and more mixture of retail, business, and housing. So you would see a lot more like Confluence, the building next to us, where there's retail downstairs and housing up high. And so we saw that opportunity and believed it would be very good for Ginger and Baker, knowing that it would take a little longer than a new business would love to get pedestrian traffic and to improve the quality of the aesthetic in the community. I think no one, of course, could foresee COVID. And we were only open 2 years and 3 months when COVID hit. And so we shut the business, laid off 100 employees. It was a death knell for everybody. And being out there all by ourselves and all of the development that was to come, I think has been set back 3 to 5 years.
Sure.
And so our horizon for the River District's vitality, I think, has been pushed out, which is hard on the business. It's not a pedestrian pathway generally. If we didn't have the parking across the street, honestly, I don't know what we would do, because the city offers no parking close. And, it's a dirt path on Willow, and you go out toward New Belgium, and there's no lighting, there's no sidewalk out there. So it's very difficult, I think. And we are hoping and continue to advocate for the city to invest more heavily in the public spaces in the River District so that it attracts more businesses. Not everyone wants to be 5 years ahead of the city building a sidewalk, because it's not good for business. And so I'm hoping that the River District Business Group can continue to advocate for the city to invest more and to improve the River District's access for the community, because right now access does not always feel easy, does not always feel safe, and is certainly not, there's no signage, there's no street lights, those things matter in a walkable town. And so those improvements have to be made for businesses in the River District to thrive and for new businesses to choose the River District as a point of location.
And you got, the hopefully Powerhouse 2 starts to come around. I know they're kind of stalled out right now. And then you've got the Innisphere building some additional building. Stryker owns a few properties right there on Vine and College. And, it'd be interesting to see what she does. But yeah, I mean, it'd be tough to be as patient as you've been and seemingly will have to be for the time to come, because the city of Fort Collins is in no rush to pass any developments through their process. So it's a tough slog through it. Do you see between now and then, it seems like you said your big focus is branding, making sure that Ginger Baker, the brand is there, that people choose to be part of it, the community aspect, the classes, the boardroom meetings, the lunches, the dinners, breakfasts. What do you see as kind of the future for Ginger and Baker?
Well, my goal all along, Patrick, has been to be a national brand. I really want people, if they know Williams and Sonoma or Dean and DeLuca, that they would also know Ginger and Baker, because the logo itself has Fort Collins, Colorado in it. I truly believe Fort Collins is a treasure that other people would like to experience in some way. And all of our branded products in-house, we have our own steak sauce, our own hot chocolate, our own chai, our own coffee roasted by Bindle. We have our own spice line, et cetera, et cetera. All of that, we partner with local businesses. And so everything that we've got there is Fort Collins. And our brand has Fort Collins, Colorado in it. And so I do believe that we are able to export some of the good, the agricultural roots, the value, the creativity, and the business entrepreneurship from Fort Collins with the brand. Hopefully, just like people might know about Ree Drummond, the pioneer woman, and the mercantile in little bitty town in Oklahoma, or they might know about Magnolia in Waco, that someday people will know about Ginger and Baker in Fort Collins, and it will be a destination, attraction, event space, community hub for Fort Collins, just like those businesses are for their communities. And, we see a lot of evidence of that now. We have been in a few national magazines. We do ship product out of state. We are beginning to get a little tour buses show up, with people coming. But we're still a relatively new business. And in the middle of trying to build a brand, we shut down
right.
principally for quite a long time. So that has not been helpful in our march. But I do think we can brag about Fort Collins and be an attraction, one more great attraction in Fort Collins, along with the CSU Stadium and the Botanic Gardens and the Discovery Museum and the Old Town buildings and, all of the things that this community has to offer. I think we can be one more of the things to put Fort Collins on the map.
I agree. I feel like Fort Collins, as much as people as a local here, everybody's moving here, it's still kind of under the radar a little bit.
I have to tell you, we moved here a while ago now, but I'd never been to Fort Collins. I didn't even know about Fort Collins until I met Jack Graham. And so I do think Fort Collins is still a wonderfully small local community that every now and then gets a headline. Yeah. And, I'm good with that because, of course, uncontrolled growth can help us lose our identity. And we want to keep our identity so that we're always a great place for people to live and visit. But it is true. It's still small town America. And it's, people think, oh my gosh, it's almost in Wyoming.
I know, because my wife and I joke, we're like town, city, community, What are we? What are we? It's like obviously Denver's a city and everything like that. But no, I just have kind of one last question as we kind of wrap up. I was at a real estate function a couple of weeks ago, and everybody, we all love our community. Everybody loves it, but affordability was always kind of the big, I guess red flag that kind of came up, and I kind of took the other side of that. I go, we have Hewlett Packard, we got Broadcom, we got Intel, we got Anheuser-Busch. We got some big, businesses in our town. And I'm just curious, and I think that's a huge part. We have CSU. That's a huge business. Our healthcare system. What is your thoughts on like the future of Fort Collins in terms of, bigger corporations coming here? I know you sat in a lot of boardrooms and, hear a lot of chatter. Do you think Fort Collins is going to start attracting bigger, some of these bigger businesses, these top Fortune 500 companies?
Yes, well, it's a great question, Chris. There's no doubt that people want businesses want to be in communities where their employees want to live.
Yeah.
Right. It's very difficult. And in any case today, it's difficult to get people who want to come to work. And I mean that literally at Ginger and Baker and at any size company, including, Walgreens. Getting people who want to come to work is a challenge. And certainly where you live has so much to do with that. And so we want Fort Collins to be the kind of community where people are dying to live there. And so you can attract the best talent. And one of the reverse issues had been true in Colorado for a long time is that the quality of the education is so high at CSU and CU and Mines and others, but there were not job opportunities commensurate with that quality education. And so we lost a lot of our college graduates outside of Colorado. And I think Colorado and each of the communities needs to work very hard to recruit more high quality business to keep our talent. So I do believe, you'll see all over Fort Collins, very highly educated kids, 2 or 3 degrees, maybe master's degrees, and they're waiting tables trying to find a job that'll pay them for their college education. And so my view is we need more, and the city, state, county should all be working to bring more business to our communities, because that's what retains our talent, makes it, again, reinvestment. I believe business is generally good. I'm very biased, but if you work for a company, now I tried to only work for companies that were good, ethical companies. Let's work for a company. That company pays property taxes, payroll taxes, sales taxes. They have to employ people in that community. Those people then have an income. Those incomes go to support putting their kids through college, paying their mortgage, buying groceries at the local grocery store, giving back to their church or the local symphony or the local art museum. That's how money flows down. And those businesses pay for communities. Those people that they employ pay for improving communities. And I think we need business.
I agree.
Healthy, ethical, striving business. And, the good news is there are bigger institutions now in Fort Collins, but I want it to always have local business as well.
Yeah,
entrepreneurship and innovation, people who are vested generationally in the community and not just move. So I've been in corporate America, that you get moved all the time. That's different than a family whose grandparents, parents, and now kids have run that same business. There is a difference in their commitment to the community and how they invest. And yes, we ask corporate America to invest, but it's corporate, it's not individual, because people move in big companies. And so we want both, because both can invest differently in our community, and we need them. And the city has to participate. I gave a talk after we did the redevelopment of Ginger and Baker. 17% of the cost of that project went to fines, fees, not fines, fees,
isn't that nuts?
Taxes, permits, 17%. So, Jack and I were fortunate because we'd had careers and we had the ability to do that. But a young entrepreneur could no more do that than a man in the moon. And so we can't have fees and taxes and permits and obstacles that are so great that
and
we
time too.
Entrepreneurs
3 years to do a project off the ground. Yeah. What does that? How does that make sense?
Yeah. So we need efficient government. We need rational government. We need partnership government. We need incentives for entrepreneurs and local people to own and run businesses in this town. And I think all of us as business owners should advocate for that and show up and make sure that we're reminding people that without economic vitality, there is no community. There's no social services. There's no philanthropy. There's no public-private partnership. Unless the economy is thriving and businesses can succeed, people can't be employed. Nobody's going to pay these high payroll taxes. It's not going to happen. Yeah. And we have to be together in our mission to keep Fort Collins a healthy community.
Ginger, we can't thank you enough. You are amazing. You know, and your support of this community is fantastic. You know,
well, we love it here. We love it here. We want it to stay great, and we're trying to do what we can to help.
And you have an amazing Christmas light display that people need to go check out.
Oh my God. Yes, we had, I think we had a third of Fort Collins come look at them in December. We did a little event to support the respite care here in town. And it was a wonderful evening.
Well, we finish each episode with, we are Fort Collins. We are the Napa Valley of beer here in Fort Collins. And after a long day's work, maybe it's your patio. I wouldn't be mad if it was. But where do you find yourself, cracking a cold one and enjoying a long week worth of work?
Well, we are fortunate that we live on a farm right outside of Old Town, and we do have a patio here. And so it's not uncommon for Jack and I to be sitting, watching the sun go down on our patio deck upstairs and just reveling at how lucky we are to be able to live on a farm right in town and to have a community we love and this perfect setting of weather and scenery. So that's a great place for us to be.
I love following your Instagram, by the way. All your posts, all your pictures, all the horses. I love it. It's fun to watch. And you guys are awesome. Well Ginger, I appreciate you joining us today. And Fort Collins is very blessed to have you and Jack as stewards of property, as advocates for business, as citizens of our city. So thanks for pouring all that you do into our community.
Well, thank you. I am glad to be here. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Ginger. Friends of the podcast, thank you so much as always for tuning in. We thank you so much for your support. And just so you know, my amazing co-host Patrick Soukup over there, he is the founder, started Soukup Real Estate. If you ever need any questions about buying or selling or just want a market report on your existing home, reach out to Patrick. His team is absolutely fantastic. Born and raised in Fort Collins. His information is right there on the page. Strongly recommend reaching out.
And same for you, Chris. As if you guys are looking at buying or refinancing a home here in Northern Colorado, there's nobody better to reach out to than the Murphy Whitlock Group. And Chris Murphy is going to take incredible care of you. So do not hesitate to reach out, ask questions. He is in no rush, no hurry. So give him a chance. And I think he's going to do a great job for you. Thank you for watching.